And think we are live. Let me check YouTube here. It says we're live. So we're just going to wing it, I guess.
All right.
Wow.
Hello, lovelies.
How's it going? Hello everybody. We are live with, do you go by Maggie or
Just Maggie.
okay,
Yeah.
it's Maggie Ward. Um Quite the prolific author. You've got quite the list of books available. I'm trying to get back to my original screen here. Oh, I lost my questions. Not a good way to start. There we go.
The Maggie fandom. Oh, look, Shiley. Shiley has come back in after escaping to the barn during the warm weather. The minute the wind started blowing and got cold, she ran to the back door, and now she's in my lap.
Yep, we have
Because she's not spoiled.
we've got quite a few people here that subscribe to the channel specifically for my cat, so that they'll appreciate that.
Oh, I have multiple books with cats. So
You got
I
multiple books,
even have a
period.
I have multiple books period, but I do have one, How to Become a Crazy Cat Lady to Survive the Zompocalypse.
Hold up. Yeah, I guess we can start with that. So I
Picture
have.
of my grandma Geneva.
Oh yeah. Yeah, I saw that on your list, and I had to ask about it because I read the description. It sounds like a really fun book. Where did you get the idea for that?
Okay. Melissa Ike and Allie Etheridge used to do sprints with prompts. And one of them is you missed the beginning of the apocalypse. And then on another one, it was what's the truth about cats? And it was like the ancient Egyptians had it right. Cats will save your life. And so it kind of rolled into this kind of cute little thing about this girl who like doesn't realize the end of the world has happened because she lives in her own little social media exclusion zone. And then the FDA approved a substance called Tarula yeast extract to go into food everywhere. And because yeast and fungi are not under the GMO Act, they were able to take a type of candida yeast called Tarula, which excreted monosodium glutamate naturally as part of its metabolism, and they tweak it to where it basically sweats, pees, poops, and vomits monosodium glutamate, and they grow it in these big vats, and then they dry it in a kiln, and then they have organic monosodium glutamate powder to put in organic food. And sorry, the chemist in me has to tell them the monosodium glutamate molecule does not change just because you change its source. Whether you grow it or whether you chemically create it, same salt molecule, which means everyone like me who is sensitive to monosodium glutamate, over the course of about 2 years, we lost 3/4 of the food we can eat. And the released extract is banned. It is not allowed in like most of the European countries, most of the Asian countries. India doesn't allow it, but the United States is perfectly fine putting this organic monosodium glutamate. So I went on a rant. And at the same time, The Walking Dead was winding down, and I was having my normal rant about how much I hate The Walking Dead and the fact that the zombies don't decay, because
Yeah,
another thing from
that was one of
me
my
being
issues.
pre-med, me being pre-med, and you were, if I'm sorry, but if you have a body laying in the open in Atlanta, Georgia in the summer, it ain't going to be walking down the street in a week. It's going to be a pile of goo and bones and fly maggots.
Yeah.
That and so, one of my friends who's she's done this a couple times to me, challenged me to write the genres I hate the most. So fix the hole in the zombie apocalypse and take your food rant out on that. So in the book, basically, it starts with an ancient Egyptian cursed city. And when they find this city, all of the organic items in the city, all of the food, all of the linens, are perfectly preserved after 3,500 years.
Mm.
Now, imagine what the food industry would do if you told them we have a fungal extract that will preserve all fresh and canned foods indefinitely. Now, it can't be frozen. None of the frozen foods, it doesn't work in frozen foods. But any fresh or canned food can be preserved indefinitely if it is sprinkled with this powder or soaked in a solution with this powder in it. You know, they would fall over themselves to put this in everything, regardless of the side effects. And I talk about this in the book about how they couldn't get animals to eat it. Animals would starve to death without before they would even they wouldn't eat it. They would starve to death.
Yeah.
And so they start feeding it to people. And the main character is Dr. Babette Bland, who is the last person to graduate from Harvard with a library sciences degree, which is a program that they have tried repeatedly to kill because the written word is dead, the internet is all God. And there's a couple places where she talks about the importance of the written word and why libraries need to stay a thing and not everything be on your phone. But she's allergic to yeast, so she never eats any of this stuff. Well, all these people that are eating it, they're basically microdosing themselves with a fungal toxin, and they develop fungal zombieism.
Mm.
And all of this traces back to this ancient pharaoh. And you find out Pharaoh Bakare, which is an actual Egyptian pharaoh. I did so many deep dives into Egyptian dynastic studies. I mean,
Yeah.
and so basically he was a sun worshiper because this meteorite fell down and it cracked open and they got this stuff from the liquid inside the meteorite. They called it the blood of the sunstone, and it made everyone who consumed it immortal.
Yeah.
And they didn't like the sun, but they were pretty much immortal, and they just walked around and did the same things they did before they died. Except there was one little quirk. After a while, they began to bite anything that bled like ravenous wolves.
Yeah.
And so the zompocalypse begins, and at this thing, and I have warnings in this because it was written during NaNoWriMo, 2022 during the resurgence when they were talking about locking us all down again. That's what it was wrote, and so I have warnings in there, and this technically the the Pharaoh's fungus, they're calling it the fifth plague because you get this mucus draining from your eyes, all this black stuff around your eyes that drains out, and around your lips like thrush, and it looks like the old paintings of the Egyptians with the black eyes
Mm.
and the lips. And the things infected with this are for some reason they're scared of cats. They will run from cats if the cats have a natural amylase in their saliva that if they get infected they will lick themselves and to keep themselves from getting infected. And so that if you get bitten, you need to have you put some tuna oil on the bite, let your cat lick you.
Nice.
And it'll kill the infection. So yeah, it's all this crazy cat lady stuff. And in the beginning of the book, you meet Theodora, Lady Theodora Carnarvon, who is the imaginary granddaughter of Lord Carnarvon, who was with the discovery of King Tut's tomb. They said he died from a mosquito bite, but there's all kinds of questions around it. Was it the pharaoh's curse that killed him and stuff? So there's all this interesting lore around his particular death. So that's in the story, and Lord Carnarvon takes Theodora and her best friend Peggy, and they go with a battalion of soldiers, and they find this lost city. And everything in the city is perfectly preserved, and the city is overrun with feral desert cats.
Yeah.
Well, the soldiers were bored from digging out the tomb and digging out the temple, and it looked like somebody had taken wet sand and just poured on all the buildings to crush all the buildings. And they eventually figured out that there was something very wrong, and the reason the cats were there was to keep anyone there from leaving there. Because everybody that jokingly tasted the food that was in the crypts, the perfectly preserved food, they'd all start acting weird, really docile. They develop this cough. They develop this eye mucus. And so Theodora and Peggy, they wouldn't eat anything that the cats wouldn't eat.
Hmm.
So they knew something was wrong. And the story starts with these two little feisty girls in the 1920s driving Lord Carnarvon across the sands of Egypt to escape this city. And the last thing the sergeant major that was with them was just basically put them in the thing, it told them to truck and told them to go. And he stayed behind to kill the soldiers that were left that had become zombies so that they couldn't spread the disease. Because this is right after the 1918 Spanish flu pandemic. So if you had a disease and you didn't know how it was spread and something like this, they had a good reason to be afraid because a couple million people died in that pandemic before they got it screwed down.
Yeah.
So then you jump ahead to Babat's graduation, and their pandemic 4 is resurging, and it's an RSV type virus, which I wrote this before the current RSV pandemic started. And so, yeah, they're thinking the fungal infection is pandemic 5, and they haven't linked it back to the food. And everyone who does link it back to the food disappears, dies. The government spends a lot of money to cover this up because honestly, what would be the problem if your workforce died from this disease if they still went to work? If they never decayed? If you had a military that never died, would be shot full of holes and would get back up and keep fighting.
Good
So
times.
there's all kinds of political intrigue behind it, and all this stuff about contaminated food and how big food is not our friend.
Um, Neo asks, and this is all in one book. If not, this series is worth the read. So this is all just in the one book, right?
This is all how to become a crazy cat lady to survive the zombie-apocalypse, which is free on my Amazon page. I had it
And
free all weekend and it's free right now.
the link to that book is in the video's description down below. I linked that one because I was going to talk about it. Let's see. I got a couple of questions here for you. Jennifer asks, are the Pagosa Stars books taking place in Pagosa Springs, Colorado?
Yes. I actually kind of smushed Pagosa Springs and Ouray, Colorado together to create Pagosa Cliffs. And the Pagosa Stars and the Pagosa Cliffs Anemones, which is the series I am re-releasing. It is about the Wild Anemone Bakery. Are parallel series in the same town at the same time. Yeah, those also, fun fact, Blue Water and Blue Butterflies also started as a dare to write the genres I hate the most.
Yep. Well, Jennifer asks because Pagosa Springs is her hometown. So,
Oh yes, and I love Pagosa Springs. I absolutely love Pagosa Springs. We have been there a couple of times. We're hoping to go back this summer. Um, but I'm sure you know when you read the description about what the ridge of the Ridgeline Ranch, like if you're driving to Piedra Falls, I'm sure you know exactly where that at if you live in Pagosa Springs. The Tanner Ranch is actually the Bootjack Ranch, which everyone knows where that is on the east side of town. And yeah, I talk about a lot of very, very familiar things. If you are a Pagosa Springs resident, you're like, I know where that is, and I know where that is.
cool. Excuse me. Margaret Bernard's here. Oh, my comp fell asleep while I was on my dance break. um, Crazy cat ladies for the win.
Yay!
Shadow would be the first to help. Yeah, because Shadow, she was here a minute ago, but my gray cat, she's very, very licky. So, okay. So the next book in your Relic of Time War series is currently available on pre-order. It comes out June 1st. What is the
Mhm.
Relic of Time War and how long is the series? Because you're like on book 12 now.
Yes, yes. Relic of Time War. So 2015, April 20th, 2015, I had a stroke. A non-bleed or lacunar stroke. Basically, in the left side of my brain, I have medial damage, and I lost languages. So many languages. And you don't know how many words you use in a day until you can't make the word baseball
Hmm.
come out of your mouth
I know
or your
somebody
fingertip.
that's I know somebody that's like that.
You develop aphasia. You know the word you want to say. You know exactly what you want to say, and I ended up because I was one of those kids that when I was 6 and 7 and 8 years old, that my summer punishment was go read the encyclopedias. You're not leaving the house this summer.
Hmm.
I'm sorry I shaved the babysitter's dog. It's not my fault. Um, so yeah, it started off. I was relearning language, and my occupational therapist was like, um, doing these exercises with your kids are good because the kids were doing vocabulary exercises, and I was doing it along with them and learning to re say the words. I knew the definitions, but I was having to learn to re express them. And one thing I learned when I was working in Alzheimer's nursing, when we had people that had stroke trauma, is you can retrain the brain if you do it immediately.
Yeah.
If anyone out there, if you have a stroke, if they tell you you're only going to live 2 more years and you're going to spend the rest of your life in a nursing home, don't believe them. That's what they told my husband 10 years ago. So I started working on learning vocabulary, and my kids were watching a playthrough by Cyanide Epic. He's a channel on YouTube. And for a while at that time, he was using Minecraft as an animation engine.
Hmm.
And he had the Jurassic Craft module just plugged in, and they were doing a Minecraft role play, and they did a parody music video
Yeah.
based on the song Centuries to go with their Minecraft play along.
Yeah.
And in the video, there's this little boy running through the garden with an iron golem. And if you play Minecraft, you know what an iron golem is.
Yeah.
And my kids were like, "Who's the little boy? Tell us a story." Because that's one thing I've always done is tell them stories. I'm from a Native American storytelling family. So yeah, so many stories. So I started making up a story about this little boy being the Prince Carflow's son. And I wrote the original story with um, Jorge Cyanide, Chris, and Carlo as the characters. And then their collaboration ended, and they were like, "Can you like separate us?" So I ended up having to pull them out, completely rebuild the characters, and change all of that.
Yeah.
But it taught me how to relearn language by writing this basically a 30,000 word fan fiction called War of Prophecies.
Hmm.
Well, then when the writing started getting serious, I was like, okay, I've got to back fill in and I've got to front fill in and I've got to change these characters. And over like 7 years, that little 30,000 word fan fiction and the 30,000 word sequel to it um, became 1.4 million words.
Yeah.
It's got a 4 book prequel it's very Assassin Creedy.
Yeah.
It's like The Witcher and Assassin Creed
Nice.
meets the Winter Huntsman, meets the Winter War.
Nice.
And that's became the 4 book prequel. And then um when you read the first book called The Relic of Time and Prophecies, you get flashes from the past, from thousands of years in the past, and then you drop into modern times and you meet Ezra and David, who are these boys that get in a fight at school at the dinosaur museum because they're fighting over who's the best dinosaur, Triceratops or
Huh.
Ankylosaurus.
I got stuff like that here at the house with my kids.
See, and that's very relatable to me because my godson and my middle daughter would literally throw down who
Oh,
is
yeah.
the better dinosaur. So that it became it's very relatable to things, and I also talk it, but it touches on some very serious subjects as you go through the series because it talks about, you talk about grief, you talk about, what it is for a child to grieve, what it is as an adult to grieve, and one of the interesting things is what it is as an immortal to grieve, because immortality would suck,
Mm. Yeah.
because if you buried everyone around you, every generation, that level of trauma is something that they don't deal with when they almost never deal with when they talk about, oh, vampires and elves and immortals and stuff. They don't talk about how much it sucks to be immortal
Yeah.
because everybody dies except you. And then you go into the past and you meet Damien and Karstein, who are the chosen ones, basically.
Mhm.
Twin princes, born to be the chosen ones, born to lead the remnant of their people and the human people against the shadow. The problem is there's a prophecy,
Yeah.
and the prophecy says if a son of Adamos falls into shadow, war will come. And Damien gets sucked into the darkness.
Hmm.
It starts as a little seed, but it grows and grows and grows and grows until he literally kills his father, betrays his family, and starts a war against Karstein, which Karstein barely wins. And you meet when David and Ezra are in grad school. They go to basically the Jurassic Island from like the Jurassic Park movies.
Yeah.
And they have that ooh ah moment. And then they discover everyone there is dead. And they have to wait a month for rescue. So they're trying to survive. And Karstein is still there on the island, alive. And there's no way that he's 65 million years old. All he knows is they found him in a tomb,
Mm.
and he only remembers the last 10 years or so. And
Interesting.
so they're trying to the two of them are trying to figure things out, and then they go to Karstein's home, and Ezra and David touch the relic of time on accident, and they get zipped back to Karstein's kingdom. And it's right before the beginning of the next war between Karstein and Damien. And that's where this whole series starts playing out.
Mm.
And it is on and on and on, and then you get to the third book, and you get to meet Daisy Kane,
Mm.
and she is quite interesting. She is a like one of these child prodigy super geniuses, and but she is hunting Damien. Like, she has gone from being a world renowned physicist and energy researcher to being a internationally known terrorist,
Like you do.
because she keeps blowing him up, and she is finally starting to figure out that there's something wrong because I know I've killed him 3 times.
Yeah. That'd be fun.
So
Well, it sounds like a fun series. Um, Jennifer says, I read a lot of young adult fiction after my brain injury to relearn sentence structure and remind my brain how language works. So your approach was fabulous. And that the pre-order for that is in the link in the description down below as
yeah.
well.
This so far we have gone all the way through the wars. We have there's so much stuff that happens between the beginning books and the book that's about to come out in June. The book in June is basically the last. It is basically it is the end of the war,
Mhm.
but not quite, because there's still 2 more books after this one.
Um,
Because the enemy is interdimensional shadows that can indwell people and contaminate them with basically the frequency of energy that is considered dark magic.
mhm.
There's a lot of if you're a sciencey person, I try my very, very best to sciencey explain things because I'm very much an Anne McCaffrey fan about be as science fictiony as possible with as little fantasy as possible.
Mm,
That said, it's the whole series is basically sword and planets without damsels.
fun.
Well, I have one damsel, but it's not her fault. She's a damsel. But pretty much everyone else in this book, like the women you meet in this book, they're basically the modern Amazon warriors.
Nice. Are these all on Amazon on Kindle as well? Kindle Unlimited?
They're all on Kindle Unlimited. I have not gone wide yet. To be honest, with my health issues, I do not have the spoons right now to manage going like onto Draft to Digital and onto Smashwords and to Barnes and Nobles. I don't have the spoons to manage multiple platforms.
Neither do I. Yet here I am. Let's see. So that's one thing I was going to bring up was on a different live stream. You mentioned how your like a Time War series started as a Minecraft playthrough. Um, how often do games influence your writing? Because I know
A
you
lot.
said you were a gamer before, so
I was a gamer before my stroke. I have been a gamer since the 90s.
rock
So
on.
I have been a gamer since the mid 90s when the games were just I mean, yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
When they went
We had that conversation of StarCraft. It's like, yeah,
yeah, StarCraft, I hope they don't mess it up if when they remaster it because there's talk about them remastering it and I'm like,
oh,
please don't screw it up, please.
that had one of the best storylines of any game series I've ever played. I loved the story writing to it, and the cinematics were just spot on.
Oh, they were. It's a classic game and the arc of Sarah Kerrigan
Mm.
is so amazing because she's the spy ops, super intelligent, and that moment when she's like, "They left me here to die,"
Yeah,
and then she comes back as the Queen of Blades, and she like genocides like three planets, and
yeah.
it's you're just like,
She whoops
yeah.
everybody's
Oh,
ass there for a
if you
while.
haven't followed if you haven't followed StarCraft, sorry, spoilers. Um,
Yep.
but yeah, and then she's the chosen one, and it's such an interesting like her arc from like gray character, dark character,
Yeah,
back to gray and toward the light, and but she never quite reaches that
yeah.
good guy,
She was in far
you
more
know.
control in the second in Wings of Liberty. Because in like the first series, Kerrigan, the Queen of Blades was just everybody dies. But she has more control after reclaiming some of her humanity and then getting pulled back to save Raynor. And so
Yeah.
when she becomes Queen of Blades again, she had way more of her humanity towards that. And I loved her arc throughout all both games, StarCraft and StarCraft 2. Um, well written. So like
Yes, it and another one, Mass Effect.
that's
You
my
will see
son's is a
you
big Mass Effect
you will
fan.
see like um homages to Mass Effect in this, and like honestly, I'm one of those geek people that was in Mass Effect that like Kyle Hill, the science guy on YouTube, just
Hmm.
did a thing about the one math error in Mass Effect, which is the gravity of the ring on the oh, now I can't think of the name of it. It's the central hub where the governments are. They've got it's low, everyone port docks in the middle, and then as you move out to the ring, they've got like 1.1 Earth gravity. The problem is the distance from the central to the ring doesn't work out because the gravity at that point would only be like zero point 0.5 gravity.
Hmm.
And that's the one math thing. Like if you go to the Mass Effect wiki, they will tell you that this is wrong on purpose because the game mechanics wouldn't work for the right size of ring because the ring would have to be like 8 times further out. and that much bigger, and they would just tear itself apart, rotating
Yeah.
to create the centripetal gravity. So yeah, that's me, the Matthew me geeking out, and it's like I've got like science formula, like how long does it take to time travel on any given planet in the Goldilocks belt, and it's 1 second per 2 days, or 1 second per 2 days, per 1 second per day for two orbital cycles.
Nice.
So it can be anywhere from like 12 and a half minutes to 14 minutes, but it runs about 13 minutes depending on where you're at, because the Goldilocks belt is actually kind of narrow range. And if you don't know what the Goldilocks belt is, it is the distance from the sun that you can have a habitable planet and not cook everything on the planet.
Or freeze it.
Like Venus would be a great world, but you would melt.
Yeah.
Your spaceship would melt, you would melt, everything would melt. Mars is very on the edge of being a habitable world. And honestly, the question of whether the asteroid belt was a planet, and because Mars does this, Mars wiggles in its orbit.
Mm-hmm.
And at one point, was Mars a binary planet? And or was the asteroid belt a planet that was just further out from the Mars planet, and the gravitational pull from the inner planets and Jupiter swooping past it with its big behemoth ass tore it apart? And there's a couple of moons around Jupiter that have potential. Honestly, Neptune's moon is much more potential for like enclosed habitation
Mm-hmm.
than Saturn or Jupiter's moons. But also the problem is Saturn and Jupiter both have metallic hydrogen atmospheres, which means they have these huge electromagnetic fields around them and radiation fields. So it'd be nice to live near Jupiter if Jupiter's radiation didn't hook you first. So yeah, there's all kinds of things to think about, and
Good times.
I've got
How
exoplanetology
how have you,
was one of the things I had to look at when I was creating all of the different worlds in Relic of Time Wars. I actually have one world that rotates from west to east, so the sun rises in the west.
that'd be different. Rotating backwards. How often do like the games before? Have you ever done fan fiction on them at all, just for the hell of it?
I stopped writing after college. I literally, when I graduated in 93, and then I went back, I got my pharmacodynamics and medication administration associate's degree, and then I went back to get a master's degree in nursing. And but other than writing papers, once I got my associate's degree in 91, I didn't do creative writing at all.
Hmm.
I would do stories, for school, but once I got those English credits out of the way, I didn't do creative writing at all. I mean, I've been reading science fiction since I was literally 5 years old. My first book was a science fiction book, was called The Star Girl, about a little girl from Venus who, and this was before I knew that Venus couldn't be lived on. This actually made me read my father's astronomy textbook from his college days and go, oh, sad, people don't live on Venus.
Nope.
Sailor Moon lied to us. No, I had to tell my children Sailor Moon's a lie.
Yeah.
So yeah, but no, it's I've always been a sci-fi reader. I was reading Anne McCaffrey way too young to be reading Anne McCaffrey, because there are some very adult themes in Anne McCaffrey that you catch later. When you're just a 10-year-old reading Anne McCaffrey, there are things that just go
Yeah.
and then when you read it again when you're like 16, you're like, "Oh, that." Yeah, that. But no,
How's
I've always been a sci-fi and fantasy reader. But I was never a writer once I got out of school, but then after my stroke, my occupational therapist was like, "This is great. You should write." And so I wrote, and she's like, "Do you mind if I take this and read it?" I'm like, "No, go ahead." And then she was like, have you ever considered being a writer? Because you have a natural storytelling. And I was like, well, I don't know. So I started putting stuff on Wattpad.
Mm.
And then I wrote a fan fiction of my friend's werewolf romance because it was one of those like Team Jacob and Team Sparkles.
Oh
Yeah, I'm
no.
bad word. Yeah, but it was like the two werewolf alphas. It was like that, and then the rejected mate, kind of a trope. And there was this group that was like everybody was Team Alpha number one, and everybody else was Team Alpha number two. And then there was this fraction of us that were like, no, Team rejected female. She deserves her own choices. Screw the alphas. And so this became a personality in our chats, in the commenting, and so it developed into Team Cora, which was the main character Raya's best friend in school. But after all the trauma she went through after her rejection, she just kind of forgot everyone that she knew.
Mm.
And so Cora went from being her best friend and protector to being this just someone, just an associate in her bubble of pain. And so yeah, so this became a fan fiction, and everybody was like, "Wow, you can really do the writing thing." And I was like, and I didn't know anything about imposter syndrome. I didn't know anything about story plotting. I learned this stuff in college, like in 91 and 92. I'm not going to remember this now. It's 2017. And that went on, and then I had a friend of mine online who approached me, and she's like, so here's the deal. I have this story that I want to tell. I hate the way that werewolf romances are going into this abusive alpha trope, and I want to write this story based on my life as a domestic abuse survivor. And I was like, cool, I can help you with this. I will help you with it. Because I didn't know any better. I'm like, sure, I'll help you. I will write it for you. Tell me what to write. And so she and I wrote a book called Apostasy, A Luna's Struggle, which basically blows all of the romantic notions about the abusive alpha tropes out of abuse is not love. And we did all these chapters, and there were so many chapters where at the end of the chapter we would have, and these are the numbers you call to get help if you're suffering this. Here are 20 signs that you are in an abusive relationship. Here is why addiction happens in abusive relationships as a coping mechanism. And it really struck a chord with a lot of people, and they're like, wow, you are really writing this. And I'm like, yeah, I have my own trauma from my childhood, but it's really Bee's story. And it was very interesting because Bee was very worried that she would run out of time to tell this story because she had breast cancer. And she knew she was dying. She had gotten out of a very violently abusive marriage with a husband who then never admitted that he went to jail. He went to jail for 8 years, and he still never admitted that it was his fault that he had nearly killed her and killed the child in her body. And that one actually became the first book that I wrote in what I call overcomer fiction. Because Anula, there were two endings. There was the ending where she dies, and then there's the ending where she survives and overcomes and becomes the benevolent queen. And that book that I wrote for my friend who is dying of cancer, and our hatred of the evil alpha abuser, oh, but I love him and he instantly realizes he's wrong and loves me trope that we hate so much, became my first overcomer story. And then I began writing more and more into the genre that became Pagosa Cliffs. The people who are broken and just trying to find their way through the day.
God damn, that hits close to home.
Yeah. And it's like I've had men who were alcoholics contact me about Tarnished Stars and talk to me about Tank Tanner and his struggle with the whiskey siren. And the fact that AA did not work for him. And I know people who AA did not work for. They have a rule. They have one and done. Because if they start the second one, they're going to finish that bottle and start the bottle behind it. And there's struggles with addiction. There's struggles with lack of consent on both males and females. There's struggles with infidelity. There's struggles with gambling. And there's a very interesting thread in Tarnished Stars about this one character who, everybody, when I was first writing it and dropping it on Wattpad, everybody's like, "Oh, they're gonna get together. We ship them. We ship them." And I'm like, "No, she's dead. She's dead in two more chapters, dude. She never overcomes." Because that's the way of the world. Is some succumb.
Mm.
And yeah, there's levels of realism that I write. Like when I wrote the Revelation Night series, I published book 1 and 2 before I finished writing the third book. The pandy hit. The third book got put off like till 2024.
Yeah.
No, 2023 was when I finally wrote Elm. And I realized that I'm never going to be able to put that book on Amazon. I'm never going to be able to finish that trilogy on Amazon because the only possible ending for that book is for the female main character to sacrifice herself at the end to save her last living child. And she dies, and there's no coming back from that.
Yeah.
And that's like the cardinal rule if you're writing. You don't kill your main character. Well, yeah, I did.
I do.
I did, and it's because there was no way for there to ever be a happily ever after. There was no way for her and her fated mate to overcome what had happened between them. They could be friends, they could be co-parents, but they were never going to have that fated mate happily ever after.
Hmm.
And my fans were so mad. People get so mad about that. They're like, "No, but the moon goddess," and I'm no, shut up.
That's what when I write, if I can't make my friend Sam cry, then I'd have to rewrite it. Rachel
Sink
Rachel's
for tears for our gardens. We live in a drought state.
yeah. Rachel Adams says, "Funny how those twists turn into great stories and characters." That's when you were talking about earlier. Sam loves Anne McCaffrey. Okay, so she quit to the other account. Jennifer says, "Michael loves killing characters we've become attached to." Yeah, I'm looking for to pull the emotional strings. Don't get attached to anybody in my
Oh,
series.
oh yeah. Yeah. There is no such thing as plot armor. Yeah,
Nope, not in
yeah.
my book.
Usually, there might be one or two people that might have plot armor, but yeah. Even the dog and the horse do not have plot armor in my books. The hardest death scene I ever wrote was in the Pagosa Cliff series when Grandpa Ben's horse saves TJ and Gracie from the wildfire and dies trying to run them to safety. I think that was the hardest death scene I ever wrote.
Yeah.
And so, what's the hardest death scene you ever wrote? Because I know you've got a few.
Well, I can't say because it would spoil a book.
Oh, come on.
Yeah, that one I can't do. Um, I have turned people inside out. I don't know what the best. My favorite is the one that's in Kingmaker, but I don't want to go too far into that because it's still a relatively new book, and I don't want to spoil it. But yeah, it's the ending is definitely not what you'd expect. I love twists.
My favorite is in the Dauntless Deception.
How'd you do that one?
In the middle of a battle, and someone is holding their beloved with the blood all over them, and then they have to get up and fight the rest of the battle because a world is about to be harvested.
Yeah. Yeah. I've got. Well, that's not really a death. The fourth book in the series that I'm writing is going to be bloody as hell. But in the meantime, though, Kingmaker's ending was pretty good. I agree with what Michael said. I didn't expect the ending of Kingmaker. Nobody did. That was the point. So you feel good about yourself when the ending of a book does exactly what you want it to do. And
When,
I've had a
when the
few.
reader
Yeah,
is so mad they don't know if they want to throw the book or hug the book.
yeah. It's more of no, it's more like I was inspired by Fight Club and Fallen. So if you know what those movies are, gives you a little bit of a hint as to what's in Kingmaker. But that was the whole point of how I wrote it, because I wrote the ending first. Before I did anything else, because I knew how I was ending this book. And
Can I
so,
ask you a question about it?
sure.
So I
Jennifer did
I
throw
am
it.
very I'm a very big advocate of like using of tarot for writers, which is using tarot cards to like create twist for the characters or to create a
Mhm.
character or to flesh out a scene and stuff. It's a fun tool if you know what the cards mean. You said Kingmaker was based on D&D. Did you ever
Yeah.
roll the dice to see how things would go?
So at the very, very beginning, when I started writing Kingmaker, Kingmaker was actually going to be a series. I planned on, um, I had character sheets all drawn up, and I was going to roll it and then write the story, how the actual roles were. So I was actually role playing the game, and so even the main character has a chance of rolling a one and dying. So I thought that would be a really cool way to do it. And so as I was playing, I got about a little bit into it. Okay, okay, so I have to back up. Not Kingmaker, Despair. Despair on Wattpad. Despair on Wattpad, it started off as a D&D, and that's when I was rolling the dice. And I got about halfway through the Despair series on YouTube, on Creative Sanctuary's channel, because I do the audiobook. I got about halfway through it, and then something spurred, and I wanted to write a prequel to Despair, and that's where Kingmaker came from. So initially, Despair came from D&D, and so I changed all the stuff in it so I can't get sued. And then I changed a little bit of how the rules played. But then when I started writing Kingmaker, it became its own story. And so I plan on finishing Despair as soon as I can. But instead of playing that one, I'm gonna go ahead and write it normally. But yeah, it started off as I have character sheets for the characters that are in Despair, and had my dice. I got my D&D book here, and so I was actually really playing it. So it was
Yeah,
kind of
I'm
cool.
I'm part I'm part of a group with writer Sam Wicker, and we do a character randomizer one Sunday a month where we create these crazy slides and you roll the dice to see what you get for your characters.
Oh yeah,
And the last one we did was the masquerade, and it was monsters who go to this masquerade. They drink a potion to turn into a human, so they can like have a meet and greet at a masquerade where everybody looks like a human and there's no tension at all because oh you're that kind of monster or you look like this kind of monster,
yeah,
and then at the end of the night they all turn into what they are. So
yeah, fun.
yeah, that was a lot of fun. We've done a lot of fun things. We've done an isekai one, we've done aliens, we've done insects,
Nice.
we did mythical creatures, and I unfortunately got a unicorn.
Um,
Rachel's probably laughing because she knows how much I hate unicorns. In fact, in my Gargoyle Shifter series, the gargoyles actually fought a war to kill off the unicorns.
oh,
Evil
unicorns
creatures.
are unicorns are evil creatures.
Unicorns are evil creatures. They use their beauty to lure the innocent to surrender their souls willingly because willing souls taste better than unwilling souls.
Well, I've never thought of unicorns eating people. That's a nice twist.
Yeah, I'm waiting for the movie.
Hey, I can write the script for it. Oh, I can get dark with that. There's been a few things I wanted to do on YouTube that I haven't got around to doing yet, like twisting the hell out of stuff because I'm morbid.
Oh,
So,
I know we're running down to the end, but there's something that I want to share that appears
sure,
in a couple of the Relic of Time books,
good.
and I would like your opinion on this.
All right.
So let me find the pictures. Here it is. All right.
Jennifer says, I'm going to wear my unicorn robe all the time. Murder corn.
Okay, let's see. Share screen. All right. Are you ready for this?
Sure.
Now, there's a species in my world that they're basically a type of cave dwelling arachnid that have been corrupted by the dark magic energy.
Mm.
And if they bite you, they trap you in the delusion that,
See if I can watch it.
yes, that you are
Ooh.
having the perfect life. And so if you get bit by a soul spider, you will not resist them while they feed on you like a spider trapped in a fly, because your mind is living out your most regretted thing to its happiest ending. So if you've lost someone you've loved, they're no longer lost, they're there with you.
Wasn't there was a Star Trek episode that was like that?
Mm-hmm. Basically, yeah. So yes, this is a thing I created
So
for my series.
as it's feeding on you, it's feeding you full of endorphins, so you don't really want to stop.
Yeah, your endorphins, you have happy hormones, so you don't even realize you're dying.
Yeah, that's that's sick. I like it.
Yeah, they've appeared a couple of times in different books, and they do appear in The Darkness of the Devourer. Two of the main characters, um, they're they both get bitten and they get trapped in this delusion that
Oh,
that their lost loved ones are there with them, and they're living this happy family for decades after the war. And it's all because the shadows are trying to get information out of them to find out what the final weapon is against the darkness. So yeah. So yeah,
yeah,
these things, yeah, they're very hard to kill.
nice.
Don't let them bite you.
Drop a nuke on
Yes, tell us how you really feel about spiders.
it.
I mean, we heard
Actually,
about why
I
you
don't.
won't go to Australia.
Well, I don't have an issue with spiders in general. It's spiders that you can ride. Anything bigger than my cat, I don't trust. That's not going to happen. And now that they found not just because we were talking about this funnel spider, they found a second breed that is like twice the size. Like, no, I'm still
Oh,
not
I've seen
going.
I there's a blue tarantula that I want for a pet so badly.
Hmm.
It is absolutely beautiful. It is like a cobalt iridescent blue, and I'm like, be my pet. I will name you Bluey, and you will be my kitty, and I'll put a bell on you.
Um. Yeah. Just no.
No.
Nope. I'll try. I trust my dragon. He'll eat the spider. I'm good. Actually, I don't like. I have jumping spiders, the little fuzzy ones. I'll leave them in my garden. They eat all the um, other bugs. And then we have the wolf spiders that actually hunt black widows, so I keep them around. Um, yeah, for the most part, I don't mind if the spiders are outside. It's when you're crawling across my back in the middle of the night, I'm killing you. So that's our
So
stipulation.
you'd never come down to the south end of the state to see the tarantula migration?
I've wanted to see that. Tarantulas aren't, as long they're not hyper aggressive, so I don't mind tarantulas at all. Um, but I have never seen the migration, so it's one of those things I would like to see once.
Yeah, it's a
Creepy
Fort
creatures.
Bend is a good place to go see it. Take water because it can get annoyingly hot down there.
Yeah.
And the water down on that end of the state, I don't know why, but the water down on that end of the state has this really briny, sulfury
Mm,
content to it.
good times.
So just FYI, if you're in the southeastern corner of Colorado, bring bottled water because the tap water
Yeah,
is not drinkable.
That's closer to New Mexico, right? Southeastern. No,
Yeah.
that's on the other
It's
side.
New Mexico, Oklahoma. It's that New Mexico, Oklahoma corner
Right. Yeah.
around Springfield and around out there.
I can't remember if I don't think we went through Oklahoma. We were going to Arkansas. I can't remember how far we went. Right. Okay, well, we got like 5 minutes left. So, let's see. You write in several genres. Is there one that you gravitate toward more than the others? Like personally, I'd like to write more dark fantasy than anything. But I gotta tell you, I'm having a lot of fun with this dark western. So, is there one that you prefer over the other?
Well, I really like writing my Western Colorado overcomer fiction. I love that world. I love the people there. It's like they're my neighbors, and it's like when I wrote the last book, I literally cried writing the end of it. Was like
Yeah.
so bad. But if there's one that I tend to gravitate toward, it's like the sci-fi stuff
Yeah.
because I've got Ghost with Cats, Ghost with Ink, Ghost with Hope is the Book of Elo trilogy. I've got the Huntsman Quartet. I've got the Relic of Time Wars, which is 14 books. Um, and I because sci-fi was my first love reading growing up, that was the thing that
Yeah.
that is just where I gravitate. That is what I love that world. And and I totally believe the if you can't find the world you want to read, then write it.
Mm, definitely.
That's what I've started doing. And it's like people have pointed out that, there's like political messages in
Mm,
most of my books. And I'm like, well, that if you look at science fiction going back to the beginning of science fiction, there have always been these social consciousness messages
mm.
in science fiction.
Yeah. Star Trek.
Even even even
Star Trek was full of them.
Frankenstein was a criticism on the recklessness of modern medicine development at the time, and the just because you can
Still.
doesn't mean you should. And it's still, I mean, it still applies today.
Yeah.
And it's like I mean, and then you like the time machine, the everything by Wells had connotations with social parameters, which Margaret, that's the thing that about science fiction that she and I share that we love, because it reflects social consciousness. It
Mhm.
reflects actual current things going on. And like if you're reading Relic of Time War, once you get back the first two books, the second half of the second book is Damien's life after the war,
Mm,
when he wakes up and he lives a life of as Gaius Julius Caesar, and he lives a life of Nero, and he's the source of the Nero Vitavitis mythology. Because there's this legend that Nero came back to life like 4 or 5 times
yeah.
and started new wars against the Roman rulers.
Oh,
And
yeah, yeah.
and then it jumps into like Dr. Frankenstein, and Stein von Franks becomes the source for Frankenstein because he encounters Mary Shelley and falls in love with her artist sister, and they elope together, and Frankenstein was Mary's way of trying to find what happened to her sister.
Mm,
And so he discovers that running schools means you can program children to be anything you want. Controlling the media means you control the country or planet. If you can convince the media of a truth, they will convince the people. And it doesn't matter how crazy it is, if the people believe it, the people will force it to be. And we've all seen this in the last
recently.
12 years of politics. Go back 12 years in politics and start watching things twist out of control. And and the media, they repealed the Smith-Mundt Act. And the media, for the last 12, 16 years, has not had to tell us the truth about anything. Because the Smith-Mundt Act was an actual in the laws of the country that said the news medias cannot report propaganda to the American people.
Mm.
And now that protection is gone, and we have got nothing but lies from the legacy medias, from the alternative medias, all the medias, they all have an agenda. And most of the time, it is which side of the coin they're on that is throwing them the money.
Yeah.
And that actually becomes when you see how bad that is when you get in Terror Falling. And I'm going to give you a spoiler now. The planet is about to be harvested, and Daisy and Davin and Ezra and all of their scientist friends are like screaming at the public, we have to evacuate our planet. And the media's like, no, it's just a harmless exo-atmospheric light show. It's not going to hurt us at all. The atmosphere will protect us, just like they do from solar flares. And it's no problem at all. It's just something pretty to look at in the night sky. And if you try to leave the planet, we'll arrest you and seize all your assets. Uh, so, that's a pretty big message for what's actually going on right now.
Yeah.
And then there's once they're in the colony worlds, there's this thing called orb, which is basically a mixture of like the most addictive substances ever, but in this one I describe it as a dark magic drug.
Mm.
And they seal it in these magical glass balls, which you cannot break unless you want what's inside.
Yeah.
So the ball will not break unless you want what is in it, unless you want that addiction. And then it breaks and you inhale it, and it just makes you all happy.
Mm.
And it makes you willing to do anything. And it's like the most insidious thing, because once you're addicted to orb, it makes it very easy for the aliens to put one of their shadows in you. It makes it easy for them to control you. And it makes them easier to turn you into basically a zombie after your death and use you as slave labor.
Good times.
So yeah, there's the whole save the universe. So the great shadow or the devouring entity does not escape and eat us all, or fail. And the stakes are really high, because literally, if they fail, all light, all life, all love will be consumed.
On that note, there's one question I wanted to ask before we wrap this up. You have one book on your list. It's AuthorTube Presents Bog Hag, an anthology. How did you come across that kind of an opportunity? I think that'd be a lot of fun. Did you like a bunch of authors get on YouTube and get together
Yeah,
and
a
write on
bunch
it?
of us. Nicole Ford Thomas was having a stream, and I had missed the stream, and they got talking about bog hags, and all of this mythology about bog hags. Laura Nettles was there, a couple other people was there. I think Rachel was there too, but they got on this thing about bog hags, and so then she was like, "Well, why don't we just do an anthology?" And Nicole runs a small animal rescue. And they're always looking for funding things. They're always looking for things to like raise funds and stuff. And so it was like, let's all write a bog hag story. So a bunch of people signed up for a bog hag story, and mine was called Sludge and Sparkles. And it's basically monster speed dating meets.
Nice.
And so Yaga, who is Baba Yaga's granddaughter, and her name is like Ewenoe. But they'll say, "What's your name?" and she'll go, and they'll be like, "No, I don't know." So she goes to a speed dating because she's looking for ingredients, because bog hags are not what you think they are. The bog hag creed is protect the innocent, consume the wicked. So they have this terrifying reputation of eating things. However, they eat bad people. They eat bad monsters. Or they don't, the thing about them eating children is lies. One of them did it, and Gretel killed her, and then Gretel was adopted and became a bog hag herself. So she goes to speed dating and she meets this cursed vampire. And unfortunately, all of the vampires in this world were basically struck by the beautiful curse. So now they all look like male supermodels and they kind of sparkle in the light. Yeah, yeah, I'm not. Yeah, you know which fandom I'm smashing in that one, and they're so and you don't feel so sorry for Devlin. She's like, "I'm so sorry you were cursed. I bet you'd be hideous if you weren't cursed." And
Fun.
he goes, "I know I'm pretty. Would you ever date someone who was pretty like me?" And she's like, "No." But then things happen, and it ends up forced proximity, and they're kind of stuck together for a couple of days. And turns out that she got the ingredient that she went there for, and he's a foodie too. So yeah,
Awesome. Well,
but
sounds
yeah,
like
no,
a
it's Quill Cottage Animal Rescue in Ohio is so it if you want the ebook, we have the prices are set at the minimum amount they can be set at, so that the rescue basically gets 25 cents for the e-copy and 50 cents for the print copy. It goes to a good cause. So, and we have another one coming out called the Beltane Anthology. Author 2 presents Beltane. And that one will be coming out in a few months. And part 2 of Sludge and Sparkles, called Sludge and Slayers, a bog hag wedding, is that's going to be in there too.
fun. If I remember right, I do have the link to the Author 2 Presents book in the video's description as well. Does anybody have any questions, comments, or concerns for our guest Maggie here before we call it a night? It was very fun having it on. You've got a lot of books available, and I'm really the crazy cat lady one just hit me funny. I might have to get that. Um, and I know that a couple of people here got one of the books that we were just talking about. So let's see. Jennifer says she's awesome. Spiders are friends.
Yeah, thank you everybody who's gotten the free books, who's gone. I've had 43 copies of the free books that I offered for the weekend go out. So thank you everybody who's gotten the books. I hope you enjoy them.
Please leave reviews. That's the best thing you can do for a
Leave
self-published
reviews,
author.
leave stars. If you want to read the Revelation Night series, that is on both my Wattpad and my Inkitt pages, as is the Gargoyle Shifter book and some more of my Overcomer fiction on both platforms. I've got the samples of most of my books, the very, very first zero draft rough drafts. I leave those up on my Inkitt page for free because I know not everybody can afford a Kindle, and I just want to share the stories. So,
And how do they find your information? I know that in the blog post I wrote last week, I did link to your Inkitt, but I didn't see that you had a Wattpad.
I do have a Wattpad. Actually, I am like old school Wattpad, so I actually have Relic of Time Wars as its own Wattpad page.
Mm.
And then I am pin number mine MM Ward on the other Wattpad page, which is mostly my fantasy, my contemporary fiction. It's got my Greek mythology, the AU Universe Greek mythology that I wrote, called the Spartan Chimera, which
Cool.
is like what if the reason that all of the Greek myths, that we have different versions of the Greek myths, is because they happened multiple times, because Zeus was never happy with how the Great Game of Fates turned out, so he kept restarting the game.
Nice.
And so in order to keep Armageddon from starting, Ares makes a bet with Zeus that I can win with one piece. I can stop the wars for a generation with one piece.
Nice. Awesome. Well, thank you very much for being on the show. Hope that when your book comes out, we'll have to have you on again and talk about it. Um,
Yeah,
the
this
pre-order
month
at the pre-order.
this month the third
Oh, go ahead.
this month, the third book of Pagosa Cliffs and Enemies, the very first series, the very first trilogy, will be launching on the 17th. Next month, we will have Wind Over the Mountain, or Winds Over Pagosa will come out. June 1st is Darkness of the Devourer.
That's the 12th book
Sorry.
in the Time War series.
Hmm.
Awesome. Well, you sounds like you got a lot of things coming up.
Oh
And
yeah.
these
Well,
are all
the thing
available
is,
on Amazon.
I wrote 2 million words before I ever started editing.
Yeah.
Don't do that.
I don't know if I could do 2 million words in one book. I'm already hitting 95,000 in the sequel to Kingmaker, and I still have a way to go.
Well, I wrote so many different books all at once. Just
Yeah.
I genre hop when I'm writing, and I genre hop when I'm reading. So it was like I was doing a half mil wordy every year,
Yeah.
and so it's yeah, that's my normal writing pace is 40 to 50,000 words a month. So
Yeah. That's about what I hit. It's anywhere between 50 and 70, but I also do blog posts and everything. So I don't ever get to put that much into creative writing. I wish I could, but
yeah.
I got to pay
Oh,
bills.
join me. You should
So,
you should join me for the August 80K.
yeah. I
Eighty
don't
thousand
know.
words in August.
I
Come
could
on, come on. It's hot.
two,
You don't want to go
four,
outside.
six,
You want to
eight.
stay inside.
See, that'd be 20,000 a week. I could do it, but I wouldn't be able to blog.
Stay in the air conditioning with me and write 80,000
Oh,
words.
I
Come
could, but
on.
I have a mortgage to pay. My job is an editor for Green Geeks, so um I don't get to write as much as I'd like. Plus, I've got 3 YouTube channels, 3 blogs, 5 blogs, a podcast, and Substack.
Dude,
So,
you amaze me with everything that you manage. It's
Buckaroo
like,
Banzai.
and I was like, look at all of these different. I'm like, wow. I struggle with my one YouTube channel and my one Inkitt page, and my two Wattpad pages are they're kind of there. And but yeah, you just do so much. I mean, I've
Yeah, but I
had
don't have
actually when
40
you
books. So you got 40 books
I
published.
don't they're still six, five of them are anthologies. They don't count. Um, Although Daisy the Werecow that was in the Edith Tingle Halloween anthologies has actually become a novella. It actually became an entire novella. The three short stories that I had became a novella, and now it's like, okay, well, yeah, this is crazy.
Okay, so Neo says, Michael, you are looking for challenges 80,000 in August. Just do it. Mm, maybe. I would have to figure out the logistics of it because I can't, like, I still have a mortgage to pay seriously. So I, I might, I might be able to. I don't know. We'll see. Well, I'll think about it. Anywho, thank you for joining us tonight. Have a great evening. Stay warm. Be safe. It's windy as hell
Yeah,
out there.
I don't know if you can hear it, but we're getting pelted already.
Yeah. Well,
Wind is blowing and stuff is pelting the house.
before we started the show, my trash can flew across my yard, so I heard it rolling.
Yeah.
Just thinking about it, I'll think.
Michael and I are just like what 3 hours apart.
Yeah, you're in Rush.
Yeah.
Yeah, so you're more on the mountainside. I'm on the eastern side of
I'm on the
Denver.
prairie.
Yeah,
I'm in the prairie. I'm in the prairie. So
yeah, I'm on the eastern side of Denver, just underneath the Rocky Mountain Arsenal. So shit usually just goes around us.
yeah.
But the wind comes through pretty hard. So
Oh yeah. Those of
um,
us who are Great Plains adjacent,
yeah,
50 mile an hour winds. It's a breezy day.
yeah. Well, have a good evening. Thank you for staying with us, and hopefully I'll have you on the show again.
I would be happy to come back and talk about writing things, talk about editing things. If you guys want to check out my Substack, I put 30 things to consider when you're world building. Um,
And your
I
YouTube
am
channel. What do you don't have a lot of videos? What do you mostly focus on in your YouTube channel?
Um, well, since I've been like the last 2 years, I've been struggling with. I ended up with a really bad COVID case, and I ended up having like migraine issues. And writing tips and tips. I do the write-a-thons. I do the Breaking the Block every Sunday with writer Sam Wicker and Sky and Rachel. We rotate channels sometimes where we talk with writers about, if you're struggling, writer current events, just different things like that, things we see. We get questions from Reddit and we'll discuss it as a group. The other thing that
Fun.
I do is I'm part of the Author Tuber Writing Conference. Have a lot of things on that. I do sprints. I'm trying to get back in the habit of doing sprints weekly. The Tis Tuesday 10:30 a.m. sprints are replacing the 5 a.m. Writers Club.
Mm.
And yeah, I mod. There's so many channels, AuthorTuber channels that I will mod on or co-host on because just I've been around AuthorTube since 2017,
Mm.
so a lot of people know me. They know my stroke journey, and I really just my main thing is like I promo my books. I do writing sprints. I have a couple of my books that I've done writer reading podcast
Mm.
where I will have one chapter in each podcast of the entire book read every in a playlist, so you can just hit the playlist and listen to the whole book.
Nice.
Um, so I do a lot of different things, but mainly it's just I'm here for the community, and I tend to cheerlead people because if brain damaged, stroke head, migraine suffering mama can learn to write again and word vomit a mountain, and you can do it too because someone out there is waiting for your story.
There you go.
Don't listen to the imp. The
Nope.
imp is a liar.
Write the story or tell the story you want to write, or write the story you want to tell. God, I did it backwards.
Write the story you want to read.
Yeah, that too. Alrighty. Well, thank you very much. It's getting late. Like I said, be safe. It's stormy out there, and good times. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me. It was a lot of fun.
Okay. Have a good one. We'll see you. Bye. And YouTube. Bam. Oh, wow. Okay, so hold on. There we go. Anyway, that was a lot of fun. I like Maggie. She's a lot of fun, and she reminds me so much of somebody I know here. But don't forget that all the books that we were talking about today are in the video's description down below. And I lost my cards. And so we're going to do... I don't remember what the last card we pulled was because I lost it. It was sitting here and just poof. So this week's affirmation is... There is no such thing as writer's block. Hey, I found it. This is the one from last time. Sweet. Last week's card is there's no such thing as writer's block. There's a world out there waiting to be savored and explored, a waiting muse eager to be painted by the beauty of my words. That was last week's. This week's daily affirmation. Substack. Oh, there you go. Awesome, Neil. Thank you very much. So there is Maggie's Substack. I also have a Substack, by the way. I don't think I have my Substack on YouTube linked. If you go to michaelbrockbank.com, though, it's on the right side on the sidebar for Substack. That Substack is mostly for more for fans and insights into the writing process, instead of like with WriterSanctuary, I try to teach people how to do what I do for a living. And so or try to help with self-publishing, blogging, freelance writing, stuff like that. The Substack, on the other hand, is more of my deeper insights into what I'm doing and why, and having fun with it. So free books. Yep. And you found her Wattpad. Awesome. And the Inkitt. Good job, Neo. Neo's on the ball. I wish I had money to pay Neo. Because I would. Okay, so today's daily writing is today. Our daily affirmation this week. God, I write for those who believe in me, those who await my forthcoming words with glowing anticipation. I write to disprove those who doubt my abilities, even myself. I know I can do this. Actually, that last line there gets me. I want to disprove those who doubt my abilities, even myself. As somebody who has struggled with imposter syndrome, I don't have it nearly as bad as I used to. But at the very beginning in 2012, when I began my writing career, I had it really bad. But there's ways you can work on it, and I think I made a couple of videos and blog posts about it. So, definitely, I will post that tomorrow on the channel or on the community tab. But thank you everybody for hanging out with us. That was a lot of fun. Hopefully we can have Maggie on again sometime. It was really interesting to hear her put together the Relic of Time War and how to become a crazy cat lady to survive the zompocalypse. Zompocalypse. Tell you, the description of it just clicked. Okay, I guess we can wrap this up. Have a good night, everybody. Thank you for hanging out. Don't forget, Sam and I will be on Crossing Colorado's podcast tomorrow night. And no, I won't be doing it topless because I made enough points. Oh. And if you have any questions, comments, concerns, you can always hit me up on social media. I'm more active on Threads and Instagram. Not so much on Twitter. I will reply. I get stuff from Twitter, but yeah, it's Twitter's turned into a dumpster fire. Like all the authors I've followed, and now I just get likes and follows from porn accounts, and I'm like, you know, I'm half tempted just to shut Twitter down altogether and just start with Blue Sky, but it is what it is. I'm far more active on Threads and Instagram, and obviously YouTube. Any comment on any of my videos gets popped up immediately, and I try to respond to them as quickly as possible. So, and if you have any other comments, you can also reach out on the contact form on WriterSanctuary.com's website. If you're an author with at least one book published, you can also use the contact form for authors. It's at the very top of the website. We can get you penciled in for an interview, a live interview like tonight's. Next week, I have Timothy Robert.
Auto shutdown initiated.
Yeah, auto shutdown initiated by the headset lady. Timothy Robert and Laura Thompson will be on next week. It'll be the first time I've ever had two authors on at the same time, but we're going to be talking about their collaboration book that they did, and that blog post will be out tomorrow. And it's going to be a lot of fun because I hear there was a little bit of drama with the book cover, and I'm looking to stir the pot. So they're great. I love them both. Anywho, thank you guys for watching. I'll see you next time because it is late and I'm done. My eyes are burning.